there, thanks very much for watching. You've got fantasy drafts coming up. You're looking for some continued advice as you get ready. We're presented today by Vuori, clothing we absolutely love. We'll talk about them in a little bit. This August, you've been here for some sleepers, for some flag players, for a preview of the top running backs and wide receivers. And today, we're going to talk busts for 2023. 5 players I don't love drafting at their usual ADPs. A couple of notes here. First of all, I did bust talk on the podcast with Patrick Doherty, and I am going to overlap a couple names here, but I've also got 3 completely new names for you. And second of all, wow, ADP is a complete mess. There really is no consensus ADP anymore. It really depends on which site you use to draft. I'm doing my best to find ADPs that I don't like across platforms, but if you go into your platform and you see something different from what I say here, what can I tell you? ADP is a mess. All right, so some busts. My number 5 for 2023, it's a tight end. I'll say the Jags, Evan Engram. I know, ho-hum. Who cares about tight ends? And I absolutely agree. If you don't get one of the few elite guys near the top of your draft, I'm waiting on tight end. My point in mentioning Evan Engram isn't that he's badly misplaced among tight ends. It's fine to consider him the number 8 tight end or so. That's probably right. My point is that I wouldn't be drafting the number 8 tight end where Evan Engram is going. I see him in the 7th or 8th round pretty regularly. For those who wait to take a tight end, it's not disastrous or anything, but there are running backs and wide receivers I think are a lot more valuable than Engram will be relative to a back-end tight end you can get a few rounds later. Engram had a good year in 2022, 73 catches, 766 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not great, but okay. I mean, what I just said is what stands in for acceptable tight end production these days for a starter, also known as what Josh Palmer did last year, some backup wide receiver. So my point is, if guys like Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Elijah Moore, if they're going behind Evan Engram, which depending on your format, sometimes they are in ADP, then I think you're making a mistake deciding that you need to fill your tight end vacancy just because it's there. Wait a couple or 3 more rounds. Get David Njoku, Chig Okonkwo, who are cheaper and probably just going to do about what Engram will as well. And meantime, fire more bench spots at the scarcer positions. And number 4 on my bust list, it's Weasley to put an injury guy on here, and I use this name on the podcast bust list. But for me, it's Breece Hall. And the exception I'm giving myself for this Weasel-like behavior is simply that I'm not sure the market is properly adjusting for what the Jets are telling us about Breece Hall's reconstructed knee. Listen, literally nobody on the planet knows what Hall's knee will be capable of as we go through this season. To start the season, it sure seems like the Jets don't think he can handle anything close to a full workload because, of course, they signed Dalvin Cook, and Cook is, in my view, not cooked. Having watched Cook's film, I find enough of his north-south explosiveness to believe that he's not in New York to be window dressing. And then as we get further into the season, surely there is some % chance that Breece Hall gets closer to being fully himself and maybe takes over more and more of the workload. Not all ACL reconstructions are the same, but Hall can ask his new backfield mate about it. Dalvin Cook himself tore his ACL 4 games into his rookie season, came back the following year, that would be 2018, basically wasn't right the entire year, and even the following year wasn't fully himself despite the fact that he scored double-digit touchdowns. Wasn't really till 2020 that Cook really looked like the super explosive player we got used to. My point is not that that's what definitely awaits Breece Hall, but spending a 4th-round pick is way too pricey for me to find out. At that price, he has to be a starter in my lineup, and he just might not be ready. Before we get to the rest of the list, let me thank Vuori for sponsoring. If you'd like a way to support the channel, if you'd like a way to get some great activewear, if you'd like a way to help the planet, Vuori is for you. Their clothes are made with recycled material, and they offset their carbon footprint. None of which would matter if the clothes weren't great, but the clothes are great as I record this. I'm wearing a Vuori t-shirt and shorts. They just introduced their new Core joggers, which are based on their best-selling Core shorts, which people love because they have a liner built right in. Vuori clothes are for men and women. They make great gifts, and we can get you 20% off at vuoriclothing.com/Harris. Great sponsor. I really love the clothes. 20% off, vuoriclothing.com/Harris. At number 3 on the bust list, I'll go with a rookie. I know Quentin Johnston's average draft position has fallen since news that his training camp didn't go great. I'm not sure it's fallen enough. If you look at NFFC, he's still going as a top 100 player. I think that's just too high. Now, no, it's not a sin to spend, say, a high single-digit round pick on a rookie receiver. So as with Engram, maybe I'm picking nits a little bit, but NFL teams do all they can from bad stuff leaking out about players, right? They try to prevent that. And when it came out that Johnston didn't even look like a starter in 3 receiver formations for the Chargers a lot of the time in training camp, that should get our attention. Jordan Addison and Zay Jones, even Jackson Smith-Njigba, who needed wrist surgery, all we got about them was puff pieces, how ready they looked right away. And meanwhile, the people who cover the Chargers are like, yeah, a lot of the time when we saw the team in 3 wide, Johnston was not out there. That's not great for a first-round rookie. I guess it's fair to ask if a guy who gets drafted in the 9th or 10th round can really be a bust. But I'll say this, we only have so many darts to throw after we're done getting our fantasy starters. And I think from what I've heard to this point, I don't think Johnston will be one of those darts for me. Number 2 on the bust list. I picked him last year. I'm picking him again this year. It's Gabriel Davis of the Bills. Now, his ADP is far less offensive to me in 2023 than it was in 2022. Last year, Davis was going 5th round, maybe 6th round, mostly 5th round, which was very easy for me to poke holes in. He'd never done it before. He'd really not shown any consistency on the film or any diversity of talent on the film. What people were falling in love with from 2021 was some per-touch numbers, and then Cole Beasley was gone, and Emmanuel Sanders was gone. Surely Gabriel Davis will grow into a role he'd never really shown he could handle. It obviously did not happen. Davis did 48 catches on the season, a decent yardage total for that number of catches, some big plays down the field, but not enough on film. Shows a varied enough game for him to be a true number 2 in the way we need someone to be opposite Stephon Diggs, who's always going to get a lot of targets. If I can boil it down, it's that most of where Davis has success is running straight down the field with his arm up in the air. 332 of his 836 yards last year came on 8 catches. That's 40% of his yardage on 8 grabs, which, okay, that's a feature when you're 6'2", 225, and can really run, but it's hardly the source of great fantasy stardom. This year, Davis is more affordable in some places, but still like a 7th or an 8th round pick in a lot of places, and I'm still not interested at that price. I think you can find much better PPR guys, and just in general, more consistency in a lot of receivers who get drafted after Gabe Davis on average. And number 1 on the list, I am repeating this one from the podcast. It's another rookie, Jamir Gibbs. This isn't really anything against Gibbs. I don't really know what he'll be as an NFL player yet, and that's kind of my point, because neither does anybody else, not really. If it feels to you like this is DeAndre Swift from last year all over again, you might be right, except Swift was even more expensive last year. Swift was a first-round pick on this same team last year. At least Gibbs is mostly mid to late 3rd. It's more palatable, but not palatable enough. Kind of feels like we all have like a collective concussion. Didn't we just see the Lions not give anything resembling the full job to a player who looks an awful lot like Swift? I don't know. Then it was Jamal Williams. This year it's David Montgomery, who's better than Jamal Williams. I'm not a huge David Montgomery guy, but what he is a big dude who can handle volume. I know the arguments that get made for Gibbs. My goodness, they spent the number 12 pick in the NFL draft on him. They wouldn't do that if they weren't going to give him so many touches. To which I say, how do you know? That's not in the contract when they take you 12th overall, I don't think. Like, okay, most backfields are split. I get that. You don't get a ton of NFL workhorses anymore the way we used to. But how are we taking Gibbs in the third and we're scared of Ken Walker because he might have a split, or Ramondre Stevenson because now he has a split? It's just sort of inconsistent. As I say, I mean, maybe Jamir Gibbs is ready to be a superstar right away. I mean, the coaches at Alabama didn't necessarily think so because they never really give him their full-time job in college. But there are just way too many safer options who also have the same amount of upside that Jamir Gibbs does, who I can take in the mid-third round, who do not have the risk of a rookie running back. But what do you think about Gibbs or any of my other picks here? We would love to hear about it down in the comments. Also, very importantly, tell us the players you won't be drafting at their current price. I bet there are some great ones that I've missed here, and I would love to read the comments and see what you think. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I want to once again thank Vuori for being such a great sponsor, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.